Tonight, we'll return to the Mediterranean coast of Israel and visit the city of Haifa. Haifa is the third largest city in Israel. It is also the chief port in Israel, situated along the Bay of Haifa. The port on the Mediterranean, it's a port, the largest port in Israel on the Mediterranean Sea. Oh, yay, look at that.
Yeah, you picked that picture.
Yeah, wow. Neat. I've never been to the port. I have to admit, I have never been to the port. I've traveled in and out of Haifa and have never been to the port. So I learn things too. This is why I like doing this class, because I get to see all of you, and I also get to see places in Israel that I've never been, even though I've been like 2 miles up the hill. As I said, it's the chief port of Israel, situated along the Bay of Haifa. And Haifa is straight, that's the port. Anyway, we'll get back to the port in a minute. Haifa is draped around the slopes of the biblical Mount Carmel, and it's divided into 3 separate sections. Lower Carmel neighborhood and the port area, the central Carmel, which is a largely residential area, and the upper Carmel, home to many museums and hotels and shops. Okay. Yes. Transportation from the top to the bottom of Mount Carmel is achieved by the Carmelite subway and the Bat Ganim cable car, and by driving on the many roads. Although I find driving in Haifa almost as treacherous as driving in San Francisco. Excuse us, Isaac, but maybe you're an expert at it, but I've never been. I've been there several times. I like these cable cars. They're very cool. I've never been on one, but they're very cool. Okay. We will start our tour tonight in the lower Carmel neighborhood and the port of Haifa. Port of Haifa is the largest of Israel's 3 ports, the others being the port of Ashdod, which we've talked about, and the port of Eilat, which we've mentioned. It has a natural deep water harbor, which many harbors in Israel do not have. And it operates all year long and serves both passenger and merchant ships. And you can see a cruise line. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the port, and then we'll get back to cruising. A couple of my friends took a cruise out of Haifa. The port is one of the largest ports of the Eastern Mediterranean in terms of freight volume, and handles about 30 million tons of cargo each year, not including Israel Shipyards Port, which is a totally separate port, but in Haifa too. The port employs over 1,000 people, rising to 5,000 when cruise ships dock in Haifa. The port of Haifa lies to the north of Haifa's downtown quarter on the Mediterranean, stretches some 3 kilometers along the city's central shore, with activities ranging from military, industrial, and commercial, next to recent smaller passenger cruising facilities. A few friends of my youngest son, told me about a cruise out of Haifa. They did the cruise, I believe it was to Cyprus and possibly to part of Greece, from a ship out of Haifa. Hey, for those of us who haven't been anywhere for a couple of years, it looks very enticing. Okay, before we go on with our tour, we're going to pause for a short bit for a history of Hypha Bay and the port. Hypha Bay was a refuge for mariners since prehistoric times. When the Crusaders conquered Hypha in the year 1100 CE, it became an important town and the main port for Tiberias, the capital of the Galilee. To get goods to Tiberias, Hypha was where you went. The port fell into disrepair under the Mamluk reign, one of the Islamic ruling classes, and acquired the reputation of a pirate lair in the 18th century. Arg. Until the beginning of the 20th century, Acre up the coast served as a main port for the region. However, it became clogged with silt and was unable to accommodate large ships. Believe it or not, here comes the next picture. The first person to comprehend the tremendous possibilities of the port of Hypha was Theodore Herzl, the father of political Zionism. You should recognize the picture, most of you, who wrote a prophetic description of the town of Hypha in 1902 in his book, Alt Neuland. Construction of the port started in 1922 and was officially opened. The port was officially opened in 1933. By the General Sir Arthur Wauchope, the British High Commissioner for Palestine. The port allowed Hypha to blossom, and in 1936, the city had over 100,000 inhabitants. It just took off like crazy. And this was before World War II, or sort of in the middle. The port was a gateway for thousands of immigrants coming to Israel after World War II. With the eastern borders of Israel blocked by Arab countries, Hypha served as a crucial gateway to the rest of the world and helped Israel develop into an economic power. The port also contains, do we have another slide here?
No, we've got Carmel Kikar next.
Okay. The port also contains a modern passenger terminal serving cruise and ferry lines. The terminal offers a waiting room, a duty-free shop, souvenir shop, cafeteria, VAT reimbursement counter, currency exchange, free wireless internet, parking, and many other services, sort of like an airport. The area near the terminal also offers excellent public transit connections. The Hypha Center Railway Station is adjacent, adjacent to the terminal and has nearly 200 passenger trains in 24 hours on weekdays. It shuts early Friday like everything else in Israel, but it opens Sunday, so basically open every day except Shabbat. Additional public transit connections are available at the railway station or on Ha'atzmaut Road, the main thoroughfare in downtown Haifa, which is located in front of the station. The Carmelite Kikar Paris station is also within walking distance of the port and allows convenient access to the top of Mount Carmel. Yeah, we can get on a neat train. By the way, the other thing that Sandy's into besides beaches and rocks is trains, if I didn't say that already. Speaking of beaches, let's go to the beach.
Warning, sexist photo coming up. Men, avert your eyes.
Uh-oh. What the?
Shush. Bat Galim Beach is on the Bay of Haifa, just a little north of the city. It is different from the beaches south of it. Most of it is on a small bay sheltered from the waves. However, there is a section with waves where some people surf. See, they're surfing in Israel too. Yay, not me. I don't surf anywhere. I don't even boogie board. Possibly because of the local currents, there are rarely jellyfish there. No jellyfish.
I drew that red X.
Yay, go ahead. No jellyfish. Even when other beaches in Israel and even Haifa are infested with stinging jellyfish called meduzot for a month or more each year. Bat Galim Beach also boasts a locker room with warm showers, unlike most of the beaches in Israel, which have only cold showers. Yay, look at that.
Disclaimer, that is
showers.
not an actual photo of the showers at the beach, but I found it.
Warm showers. We like warm showers.
I tried to find the Old Spice guy, but
Is there any place in the States that has warm showers other than private hotels?
I don't
Oh, the
think so.
hotels have warm showers.
Yeah, but I mean,
Assuming you get them at the right time on the right day.
Well, in Arizona, everything's a warm shower always.
Yeah. But
but you have other
go,
advantages.
you go to Israel and sometimes you have to wait for the hot water. In a private home, you definitely have to wait for hot water. Most of the hotels, the hot water comes on right away, but you go to the beach and you want to wash off, you rarely find a hot shower. And we've been to lots of beaches. Getting back into town, the lower Carmel area of Haifa also has many industrial neighborhoods, and you can see a lot of the industrial places in the lower Carmel near the beach. You can see all the wonderful Israeli companies, IBM, Apple, Yahoo, Amazon, Google. Gee, I wonder if they're in business with a lot of American companies. But I think Matam High Tech Park may be part of the center that may be authentically Israeli. There are also some older residential neighborhoods in the lower Carmel. Picture of that?
No, we don't.
No, we don't. We figured you've seen enough old houses, you know what they look like. The slopes of central Carmel are largely residential. I've got to have some more water, excuse me. Are largely residential. My cousin David, who moved to Haifa from Kiryat Shmona, I told you the story about them getting bombed all the time in Kiryat Shmona. So they moved to Haifa because their daughter had mild cerebral palsy. Lived in the central Carmel area of Haifa, walking distance from the famous Baja Gardens. My cousin used to invite me when I was in Israel to his house for Shabbat. And I still remember my cousin was raised in England in a religious family. But I guess when he got to Israel, he became less religious because I never remember him going to synagogue. But dinner was prepared for Shabbat night. And Shabbat morning, when we got up, there was a small breakfast of leftover challah and some kind of a chocolate, I guess hazelnut kind of a dip that you spread on the challah. And we had it with tea and some fruit. And That's the first time I ever tasted something like Nutella, and I still don't know what it was, but it was really yummy for breakfast. And then David and I would go for a walk while his wife prepared lunch. And lunch was usually a cold lunch of, it reminded me a little bit of kibbutz lunch, but not really. Had several kinds of fish and fruit and vegetables and salads. And we sat around talking and then, you know, read a little and went for another walk. And usually we would walk to through the Baja Gardens, because he was like right across the street from that. During the Lebanon War, I really didn't get to see David, but I got to talk to him. And they said that he said they were okay. The neighborhood had been bombed. Sad news was that they were being bombed again. But the good news was that the Arabs at that point had a terrible aim. My cousin, even at age 70, had a great wry British sense of humor. The central area is the most populated in Haifa. One of the most beautiful places in Haifa is the Baha'i Temple and its gardens. The Baha'i Temple, or the Shrine of the Bab, it's called the Shrine of the Bab. Baha'ism puts forth the claim that it exists to promote unification of mankind and accomplishing that end. The Baha'i are not real forthcoming about their religious beliefs or practices, and as far as I know, you really can't get into the temple. I believe, though, that it is I think it's a beautiful structure. I've seen it from the outside. The Baja Gardens surrounding the temple create a majestic, beautiful, and meticulous display of sculptured perfection devoted to the Baha'i faith. They are another UNESCO World Heritage Site designed in a circular pattern surrounding the historic resting place of Baha'u'llah, a founder of Baha'i. The Baha'i Gardens are the most famous tourist attraction in Haifa and perhaps in all of Israel. There are 19 perfectly arranged terraces descending from Mount Carmel into the German colony in Haifa. There's also another German colony in Yerushalayim. The German colony, Hamoshava Germanit, was established in the Ottoman Haifa in 1868. You can tell that it's old and still has some very old buildings. It was established as a German Templar colony in Palestine, which means that it was enclosed and belonging to the German Templar Catholic Society. I don't know who's from. It was the first of several colonies established by the German Templar group in what they called the Holy Land, what we call Eretz Israel. The Carmelite or underground train goes from downtown Haifa up to Carmel Center, and it cuts through the rock of the hill going up there. And we couldn't find a good picture of it because it's all underground. The Upper Carmel neighborhood of Haifa contains many restaurants, museums, and hotels. Yay! Remember the Don Carmel?
Mhm. Beautiful.
Yeah. Joe and I, one time when we were in Israel, decided to treat ourselves to a night at the Don Carmel. It is a gorgeous luxury hotel and one of many luxury hotels in the area at the top of the Carmel. I don't remember very much of it. I do remember dipping in the pool. I remember it being a gorgeous room and having gorgeous restaurants. And it was a real treat for us because we were usually staying with people or in like regular Holiday Inns in Israel. But this one is, the Don chain is gorgeous. I stayed in the Don of Yerushalayim with a friend of mine, and the hotel chain is something to be marveled at. Every so often you got to treat yourself to a little bit of luxury. Okay, next slide. The Stella Maris Monastery, or Monastery of Our Lady of the Mount Carmel for monks, is a 19th century Calcite Monastery. I don't know what that means, but it's located on the slopes of Mount Carmel, way high up. Another Carmelite monastery for nuns is also located higher up on the mountain. How they thought these people would get together, I don't know, but it's got gorgeous ceiling and beautiful floor. If you have to look at monasteries and at churches, this one looks a little bit Byzantine to me, but it's beyond Byzantine period. But it's gorgeous. I've never been there. I was never that far up on Mount Carmel. We were doing other things. I think we walked around and went to restaurants and stuff like that. I don't think we hit any of the museums up there, but there are a lot of them. Hypha has several important universities. The Technion, the Israel Institute of Technology, is the oldest of the two. It is a premier technological institute university in Israel. Very hard to get into, and beautiful buildings. And as you can see, some of the students even have time off to do some wall climbing. I know people from New Jersey who went to Technion. Very smart. The other university is University of Haifa, and it's also a premier higher education institution. It offers many programs, including, as far as I know, the only program in Israel certifying speech therapists. Yay! Yay! My occupation for 43 years, and Lynn's sister as well. I'm not sure if they do any signing, but I think they do that there. Yeah. So you can take a look at the bottom picture, and I believe that is a speech therapist working with the young child. I think she may be trying to get him to vocalize something by putting her hand to her throat. So they do all kinds of speech therapy, and obviously have a speech therapy lab there for the students. And I'm not sure how I found out they were the only institution that had speech therapy, but I came up in a conversation with someone in Israel. Before we leave Haifa, we must talk about the diversity of Haifa. It is and has been for at least a century. A city that has a Jewish and Arab population living in harmony. There are both Muslim and Christian Arabs as part of the population. When we were in New Jersey, my kids went to a Hebrew high school known as the Bergen County High School of Jewish Studies, BCHSJS, or BCHS as some of us call it. One of my baby was president of the school, co-president of the school for a while. And its secretary and bookkeeper was a woman named Sammy, who was born and raised in Hypha. And she was an Arab Catholic. Her husband, also an Arab Catholic, I believe, was born and raised in Nazareth. She was a pleasure to work with and brought a whole new meaning to my life, because I knew nothing about the Arab Christian population in Haifa. Oh, I forgot my bagel. I have great memories of Sammy because I worked very closely with her as president, and also as the chief person who provided and cut and smeared all the bagels for the students for their breaks. I actually have a plaque at home that I've got to bring tonight. I got a plaque awarding me as the bagel lady.
Mhm.
And I set up that award, and several of my friends have gotten it since. I'm not sure it still exists, but it was fun. And Sammy was there to back me up. Even though she was Catholic Arab, she supported our school more than anyone else. She even made phone calls to get money for us. So I have great memories of that.
That's the end of the slideshow.
Yeah, next week we'll travel to Tel Aviv. Slight change in our programming. Next week we'll do Tel Aviv, and the week after, our final week, we will go to the holy cities of Jerusalem, the holy cities of Israel, Jerusalem included, but we'll also return to Tveria, Sfat, and one city that I have not been to and don't plan to go to, Hebron. And I'll explain the reasons for that when we get there.
Oh, we can guess.
We can guess. Welcome everybody back to Israel. Tonight we are going to return. Hold on a second.
Got that on the recording.
Take two.